A single line of code. That's all it takes to turn a legitimate piece of software into a backdoor for a malicious actor. When a web application takes user input and passes it directly to the system's terminal without checking it first, it opens a backdoor that is almost impossible to close. In this video, we're going behind the scenes of a command injection attack. We'll take a look at a basic vulnerable PHP application and run injection commands against it to show you how this type of vulnerability can be exploited. Lastly, we'll cover how we can prevent command injection in our web apps. At its core, command injection is a vulnerability that occurs when an application sends untrusted data, like text from a form or a cookie, to a system shell. Instead of data being treated as a simple string, the operating system's command interpreter executes it as a command. Think of it like a translator who is too literal. The web application is the translator, and the operating system is the person who only speaks terminal. If the application doesn't sanitize their input, an attacker can inject their own instructions into the conversation. Let's take a look at this server availability web application. The page is asking us to input an IP address, such as our local host address, and tell us if the host is live or not. Based on what the application is doing, we can deduce that the logic behind the application is taking our IP address input, running the ping command against it, and then giving us the output of the command. If we can find a way to append other commands to this ping command, then we will have command execution on the server, and from there we could do things like inject a command that establishes a reverse shell back to our attack box. If we take a look at the PHP code for the vulnerable page, we see that it's a very simple PHP web page with a single get form that takes our input and sets it to the parameter IP. And if the IP parameter has a value, it gets assigned to the variable target. And then the application uses the shell exec function to ping the target 3 times. And as you can see, no validation on the input is done to confirm that it only includes an IP address. So now that we think we have a web app vulnerable to command injection, how do we test for it? Well, the first thing we need to do is find a valid command injection operator. Here's a table of command injection operators that we can try to see if we get a successful command injection attack. The first injection operator we can try is the semicolon. A semicolon in a normal command interpreter is how we execute multiple commands on the same line. So if we give our server availability checker application a valid IP address, and then a semicolon and another command such as who am I, the application should execute and give us the output of both commands. And as you can see, we did a ping against 127.0.0.1, as well as got the who am I output of Cali. If a semicolon doesn't work, we could also try a new line operator. And to do that, we couldn't just do the \n inside this web form, because the application is going to literally use the \n instead of a new line character. Instead, what we could do is use the URL encoded version of the new line character, which is %0a, so that the web app interprets the character as a new line, and then should ping 127.0.0.1 as well as run who am I in a separate request. And as you can see, it did just that. Other command injection methods include backgrounding the first request, using the ampersand, using the pipe operator to only show the command injection output, using a logical AND if we can ensure that both queries will succeed, using a logical OR if we can make sure that the first query fails, or we could use these two subshell injection methods if we're against a Linux web server. So here's that background operator injection in action. The ping 127.0.0.1 command should be backgrounded, and then who am I should come first when we display the output. And it looks like our output kind of did that. We got one ping off before showing us the output of who am I, and then the pings continued. So here's the pipe in action. The output of the ping of 127.0.0.1 is going to be piped into the who am I command, but since the who am I command doesn't take any input, it's just going to give us the output of who am I. And as you can see, we get just the who am I output of Cali. Here's the logical AND injection, where both the initial ping command and the second command have to be successful in order for this to work. As you can see, we ran a ping against a valid host, and also the who am I command was successful, so both show up. What if we were to throw something like gibberish into the first command? So we're going to be pinging gibberish. This should fail, and we will get no output. On the other hand, if we were to do logical OR, and we're going to ping gibberish, this should fail, and then our who am I command should be successful, so we should just see the who am I output. When testing for command injection, we also have to keep in mind that some filters may be in place, such as filtering out spaces or certain keywords. But we can get around those filters with command line tricks that will still allow our payloads to run. If the web application errors when we try to include a space, we could replace any spaces with tabs or the environment variable $ifs to get the same effect as a space would. If the web app is blacklisting certain words, we can work around this in many ways, including separating the words with quotes or double quotes, reversing the command entirely, manipulating its case, or inserting other characters that are not interpreted by the command interpreter that still break the blacklist filter. Now that we know command injection is possible, we could use something like this Python one-liner to establish a reverse shell to connect back to our attack host. In this one-liner, all you'd have to do is change the IP address of your attack box and the port that it's listening on in this section here. Set up the listener on your attack box with netcat. In this case, we're listening on port 9001. And we set up the command injection like we were before, using a semicolon or whatever method you'd like. And then paste in that Python one-liner, and you're good to go. Back on our listener, if we see connect to and then our IP address, then we know we've established a reverse shell. In the real world, a command injection vulnerability won't be as easy to spot as our server availability checker. We have to constantly think about what is happening under the hood of the application when we're giving it input. If we think that our input in some way is being used directly in a command interpreter, then we should be testing for command injection. Think of applications that may move files locally on the host system management interfaces such as your home router, network-attached storage, or Internet of Things security camera. These devices often have web-based admin panels to change system settings, like updating the date and time of the system or configuring a firewall, media processing and file conversion websites that let you upload a PDF to convert to an image or a video to resize it could potentially be at risk. That's because these sites could be using command line tools to do these conversions, and if the names of the files that we're uploading aren't sanitized, then we could do command injection in the file names and potentially run commands against the server. And lastly, legacy enterprise software, where companies are still using internal tools that were built 5, 10, 15 years ago. This legacy software typically isn't designed with security in mind and could be using shell scripts to generate reports, manage accounts. So you should always be thinking about what the web application is doing with your input, and if you have a suspicion that it's taking it and using it in some command interpreter, then it's best that you check for command injection. So we've seen how easy it is to break in, but how do we lock the door? The quick fix most people think of is blacklisting characters like semicolons or pipes, but as you saw with the examples that I just showed you, hackers are creative. They'll find a way around filters using line breaks, backticks, encoded strings. So to truly fix command injection, we need a better strategy. The best way to prevent command injection is avoidance. If you don't need to call the system shell, don't. Most languages have built-in libraries that handle these tasks safely. So for example, instead of calling that ping binary, we could use a native PHP socket library instead. If you absolutely must use a system command, you need strict input validation. Don't just check if the input is empty or blacklisting certain characters or words. Check if it matches the exact format you're expecting. For example, our tool is expecting an IP address, so we should use a filter to ensure that that input is a valid IP address and nothing else. Finally, if you're dealing with more complex strings, use built-in escaping functions like escape shell arg. This function wraps the user's input in single quotes and escapes any existing quotes, making it impossible for the shell to interpret them as new commands. So in this version of the PHP code here, even if I type a semicolon, the system sees it as part of the file name or IP address and not as a command separator, so the shell effectively ignores it. The key takeaway? Never trust user input. Treat everything coming from a browser as potentially malicious. If you build with a security by design mindset, you stop the attack before it even starts. That's it for this beginner explanation on command injection. If you enjoyed or found this video useful, please leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. Leave a comment down below for a video you want to see me make next, and join my Discord if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.